Lyndsay, welcome. It's really nice to have you here. Thank you for coming along.
Thank you for having me.
Can't wait to find out all about For the Creators. But first of all, why don't you tell me a bit about kind of who you are, kind of what brought you to this and some of your story?
Yeah, so I'm Lyndsay, founder of For the Creators, and we're building the one-stop shop for maternity, enabling women to buy the essentials and rent the rest across fashion, wellness and beauty. I am an exited founder and a motherhood marketer by trade. So I used to lead the global digital transformation for Cow and Gate and Aptamil, the baby milk brands. And I was running my marketing agency at the time when I had my son at the start of lockdown in 2020. The world had changed and so had I. I'd become a new mum. And at a time when I should have really felt like my most powerful, I'd created a life, I felt completely lost and really disconnected from myself and my own identity. And I knew I couldn't be alone in that. Motherhood is such a transformative period in a woman's life if she chooses to have children. And yet she often feels so disconnected. The journey into motherhood is so often very fragmented and overwhelming, and women lack a single destination that is there to support her and her needs. Women are so often sort of ushered into the kids section in H&M to find one rack of maternity clothes, or the baby section in Boots to find health and wellness products for her. And I was just really angry about this. I really felt that women deserved more. And so I decided with my newborn baby to create the first single destination for motherhood that would enable her to buy what she needed and rent the rest.
Brilliant. So I'm sure your story is not unique by any way in terms of kind of that feeling you had as you went into motherhood and kind of journeyed through it. But I think the decision you took was probably quite unique. So maybe you can talk us through kind of like how you started out testing this idea and what that process was.
Well, I think because I had a marketing agency and a motherhood marketing background, and I knew how to build a brand, I knew how to build a Shopify website. I suppose I was uniquely equipped with those skills to start with. So from bed, I could botch a Shopify website to work for rental. Back then in 2020, women's wear rental was very much in its infancy. The tech didn't exist to support it. It's very different today. And I started with £5,000 of my own savings and going to my local high street and buying clothes. Back then it was just postpartum breastfeeding friendly clothes in my size. Started an Instagram page and just wanted to see if women would feel comfortable in renting, at that point, occasion wear dresses, you know, if you've got a wedding or a baby shower or a meeting that you need to go to. And that's how it started. I used my local dry cleaner at the bottom of my road, and I would ferry my orders with my baby in his pram to the post office and back. And I did that for about 18 months until I'd burnt through a lot of cash buying clothes, next day delivery from John Lewis to fulfill orders in sizes that I didn't have. We saw increasing demand from women who wanted different brands. They wanted to see, interestingly for me, they really wanted to be able to rent everyday items such as jeans and tops and jumpers, things that I hadn't necessarily considered to start with. I thought it would be very much occasion wear, higher value items. And it was at that point that I thought, right, I'm either going to have to go all in on this and raise some money. And that's how the journey sort of began 18 months later.
Interesting. In that process, what were some of the key lessons that you learned along the way there? You mentioned it wasn't just kind of occasion wear, it's everyday wear.
Yeah.
Did you find anything else in that journey too?
Yeah, I think for me, one of the key elements that I really wanted to build into the platform was that women, when they become pregnant, so often feel like they have to purchase from maternity brands, and maternity brands haven't got a good rep. You can't actually buy maternity brands on the high street anymore in the UK, so they're really hard to come by. And the discovery of bump-friendly and feeding-friendly clothing from brands that you already shop with is really difficult because brands don't signpost their collections in that way. So I really wanted to do all the heavy lifting for her and be able to go to the brands that she already shopped with, where she feels like herself in the clothes that she wears, But when she comes to For the Creators, she can go, right, well, I know that that will fit a second trimester, third trimester bump, or I know I can comfortably breastfeed in this. So the curation of product across both maternity and non-maternity brands was a really important point. Secondly, the cleaning process was incredibly important. From a very basic level, women obviously have a very heightened sense of smell during pregnancy. So the way that we care and clean products during that time needs to be obviously very gentle in terms of, and we don't use any chemicals in the cleaning of our products. Everything is odorless, so we don't offend her when she opens a parcel. And ensuring that everything that we buy is obviously soft on the skin and feels good to her when she puts it on. And then we learned a lot about fabrication of clothing, you know, what rents well, what doesn't. We're obviously renting clothing to women who aren't going out partying. So she tends to take very, very good care of the garments, and we see very little stains or damage. But more so, it's about how can we ensure that we get as much longevity out of the garments as possible and allow her to wear them for as long as possible. So buying into fabrics that we know we can get longer life cycles out of, and perhaps choosing and opting out of clothing and colours that are perhaps a bit more prone to stains or showing the signs of wear and tear. So the durability element was a big learning for me as well.
They sound like really important kind of discoveries and learnings that have shaped where you are now. But maybe we can actually talk about what is For the Creators? How does it look? How does it feel? And what does it offer?
Yeah, so For the Creators is the ultimate destination for motherhood. We enable her to come to us during pregnancy and postpartum and buy the essentials and rent the rest across fashion, wellness and beauty. We rent via a membership. So she comes to the site, she can choose to rent 4 or 6 items of clothing at a time. She selects her items and they are delivered to her door the next working day. If she chooses to swap, whether that be through a need for a different size, or let's say she's got a meeting one week and a wedding the next, she can go onto the site and select for that item to be collected from her doorstep. The postman will come, she can select her next item and it arrives the next day. So it's giving her this ultimate flexibility to build her wardrobe throughout that journey in whatever way suits her and her needs. And then for items that don't make sense to rent, so let's say underwear, swimwear, or items that she knows she's going to wear on repeat, she can buy them. And that then extends into an increasing collection of health and wellness products that we offer as well, that are again tailored to her point in the journey. And because we capture due date data, we're curating and recommending products that meet her exactly where she is on the journey, on the way.
You mentioned buy and rent. That sounds like it's a different combination. I normally see things that are either buy or things that are rent. So has that caused you any opportunities or challenges?
Well, it's been a process to get to this point. As I said, when we started the brand in 2020, there was no off-the-shelf solution that enabled you to easily rent product, more so on a membership basis. So developing the technology to enable her to rent and buy within a single checkout has definitely been a journey to get to that point and to make it as frictionless and as easy as possible. She so often is shopping with us in the middle of the night when she's either got pregnancy insomnia or she's up with a new baby on her phone. And so making things as easy for her to consume and the process to be as simple and as intuitive as possible is really key. But for me, that was so important that she could have the option to access what she needs in the way that suits her most. This is a point in a woman's life that she's invariably going to spend probably more than she ever does at any other point in her life. And yet the system is very much geared towards her owning everything. It's geared towards ownership and overspending and overconsumption. And I really wanted to put some of the power back in her hands and enable her to buy what she needs, but rent the rest and make that as easy as possible.
I think, so is a good word there, overconsumption. What I wanted to talk about now is the kind of the positive impact of the solution you're bringing. So overconsumption is maybe a nice way to kind of move into that positive impact. Do you want to tell us about that?
Yeah, so I think, as I said, like motherhood, a very transformative point in a woman's life, and yet it is so fragmented. And women already have this huge amount of mental overload, but now on top of that, they are sort of catapulted into this new category of products and services that they didn't know they even needed. They don't know what to trust. That will inherently provide a lot of overconsumption and a lot of over-purchasing, panic buying, buying things in multiple sizes, buying things that she doesn't necessarily need. And I really wanted to take away that mental overload for her by providing her with a way of consuming in a way that meant that we were meeting her where she was at, you know, sort of holding her at whatever stage and going, we understand what you need. These are the products that are recommended by other mothers and women at the same stage as you. You can trust that these are the right ones for you. So I think that is the first thing, like, you know, removing that mental overload. And then, you know, secondly, embedding that circular consumption model within the business is so important. Providing her with the ability to consume in whatever way suits her that reduces monetary waste and inherent clothing waste. Women will consume or buy around 21 new items of clothing per pregnancy. And it doesn't make sense to buy everything new for such a transient life stage. So hopefully this model enables her to experiment with what she needs without all of that excess waste.
Yeah, and I think that excess waste as well, I mean, you mentioned the monetary, mental overload, but from a climate impact as well, that textile waste is quite significant. Yeah. So as you're saying, that circular model is a much better way of doing it. Yeah. I wanted to talk about partnerships as well in order to make this happen. And one of those, I guess, is going to be, how do you manage those clothing through your supply chain? So can we talk about some of the partnerships and strategic alliances that you have right now? Yeah,
so I'm obviously not from a fashion background, I'm a marketer, so this was all brand new to me, navigating this space. We now, luckily, have some of the leading talent from some of the world's biggest fashion brands that help with the buying. But as I said from earlier, I wanted to be able to bring in both maternity brands and non-maternity brands. So our process of buying clothing was actually quite unique when we were walking into high-end high street brands and going through their entire collection and seeing what was bump friendly and feeding friendly. So the first thing to say is that we sort of vet all of the brands that we work with to ensure that the clothing that they have is appropriate for our audience and that meets her where she is. We buy on a wholesale basis for the majority of our clothing that we rent, which enables us to access deeper margins and create a longer lifetime value of every garment. We then have our reverse logistics provider, ACS, who are the leading reverse logistics provider in the UK, that handle the end-to-end dispatch and then obviously the repeat return that comes back when the clothing's being returned for washing and cleaning. All of our clothing is RFID chipped, which means that we can track the life cycle of every garment and ensure that we're not renting items that perhaps past the point that they should be and might be ready for resale. We then have a network of dropship partners that we use for retail, and that's incredibly rewarding because it's enabling us to access independent brands as well as larger brands, mostly started by mothers who have all experienced the same frustration and wanted to create products and services to help women during this phase. And that enables us to test different products and see what works and see what our customer wants.
ACS, I've heard of them before as well. Like you say, I think they're fairly well known. Aren't they also B Corp?
Yeah, they are very highly B Corp certified in terms of their rating. All of our clothing it's actually not dry cleaned. It goes through a process called ozone cleaning, which is where the clothing that is inbound, if it's not stained, it gets put into a container. They adjust the composition of the air that then sterilises all the clothing to an NHS grade. So it means you've got no chemicals. And then for anything that does need to be cleaned, they are constantly recycling the water waste that they use as well, which is fantastic. So yeah.
That's important, isn't it?
Yeah.
To keep that front and centre.
Yeah.
So tell us more now about kind of your ideal client. So you've mentioned kind of where she is in her life, and kind of, are you looking just in the UK, a motherhood in the UK, or are you looking beyond that?
We've started in the UK because there is such a big job to do here in the UK. and there's a great market, a big market, a growing market of women and new mothers. But we definitely have global ambition. Our vision is to be the leading destination for motherhood globally. From where we're at today, our focus is really building our membership here in the UK and trying to reach market leading position. We're the only brand doing what we're doing here in the UK, which makes it incredibly exciting. We have first mover advantage, but we see so much opportunity abroad across various different markets where, again, no one is really speaking to this consumer.
So roll the clock a few years forward and you're moving into those global territories. What is it that you would need in order to kind of make that a reality?
Yeah, so I suppose the beauty of our model is that we combine different modes of access. So the lowest risk, I suppose highest reward entry into other markets is via retail, enabling us to curate products within different markets, enabling her to purchase those and really understand that market and what suits her and her needs. And then as the rental ecosystem begins to build, it's still obviously very much in its infancy. It's obviously much more advanced in the States, and actually there's a really interesting burgeoning market in Australia for rental. But we need the infrastructure to catch up in order for us to be able to facilitate rental within Europe, Australia, and out into the US as well.
Brilliant. Well, in that journey of kind of going from your own personal experience to kind of where you are today, what are the things that you're most proud of in that journey?
I started this business as a bit of a project, as a bored new mum that was just really annoyed with the state of the market and wanted to find a way of fixing it. I think when you have a child, you suddenly feel the sense of urgency to try and help the planet and secure the future of your children. And for me, that I felt that really viscerally, and that my response was to build a business in order to do it. I think as a mum, my proudest moment has been for my son, who's obviously the same age as the business, to be able to see me on Times Square on a billboard, you know, with Morgan Stanley celebrating their investment in this business that we started together. And as a founder, for me, it's seeing how many women we help, the thousands of women that we help every day, and knowing that we are really helping to empower them and make them feel the best versions of themselves and give them what they deserve, and enable them to celebrate such a special and unique moment in their lives.
That's brilliant. I was going to ask you about traction as well. So you mentioned thousands of women. I mean, are there any other data points you want to share about the traction you have so far?
Yeah, I mean, we're growing incredibly quickly. We've grown 100% year on year. And we're managing to sustain some really amazing efficiency metrics in terms of our cash. So we're almost at break even, and our customer acquisition to lifetime value remains stable at 6:1, which is fantastic. We're very proud of that. We work really hard to maintain that. We've also been awarded and recognised for our impact, sustainability impact as well. Again, something we're very, very proud of. So yeah, we've done a lot in a very short space of time, but we're so excited for this next chapter.
That's really, really good work. We kind of reached the end of the interview now, and I normally ask, you know, is there something that you wish that I'd asked you? It's okay to say no, because then I've done a good job. But if there's a question that you were dying to answer, what would it be?
I think there's an interesting angle that we don't perhaps talk about, which is how For the Creators benefits the brands that we work with. So often maternity is sort of disregarded because it's a distraction from the bottom line. But actually what we found is by curating collections of maternity and feeding friendly clothes from brands with clothing that already exists, they have this very powerful opportunity to meet a woman at a time when feeling good in the clothes that she wears is so powerful. And we know from our own research that of women that have a really positive impact with a brand through For the Creators that they've never tried before, 85% of them will then go on and shop with that brand directly. So I think For the Creators as an additional acquisition channel for that brand is actually really exciting, and provides a whole lot of opportunity.
Super. Well, thank you very much for coming along. It's been really great to talk with you.
Thank you so much.